Alright, so in this video we're going to talk about how do you help students write and respond to comments, because just like with creating content, creating blog posts, students are going to require some help in learning how to leave comments. So this is and how to respond to them as well. And this is super easy, but like writing the post, it requires a certain amount of organization on your part. So the first thing that you want to think about is setting your boundaries, okay? How often do you want students to comment? And you have to be clear about this with them. So what I do, because remember, like I have 15 weeks and I ask my students to blog for 12 out of 15 weeks and they get to pick their 3 weeks off. So I require 2 comments each week for 12 weeks, right, out of the 15. So 24 comments total out of over a 15-week period. And so other things that you could say something like, you know, I want 1 comment each week. You can also say 1 comment each week for 8 out of 9 weeks, right? If you want to give them a down week, right? You can decide, but you need to think about your boundaries. Again, like blog posts, for me, comments cannot be made up. So if I'm requiring 24 comments and I'm requiring 2 comments each week, and I've defined a week, right, as Monday through Sunday, then I expect to see 2 comments, right, on week 1 appear Monday through Sunday for each student, right? And if you only do 1 comment, that's fine. You get credit for that 1 comment. If you don't do any comments Monday through Sunday, then you don't get credit for that week. You can't do 4 comments the next week and make up for the 2 that you didn't do the week before. Now that said, I encourage students to leave as many comments as they want in any week. It's just that I'm only going to you know, count 2 per week towards their grade. And again, this is because I want students constantly talking to each other about what's going on, right? I don't want them to just go in the first 2 weeks, leave 24 comments and say, well, I'm done, right, and check out. It's not what I want. I want continuous sustained engagement, okay? I want, like I say in this last point down here, comments, I want them left continuously. I want the discussion going. All right, so what makes a good comment? One of the things that I learned early on is you really do need to give students some boundaries, maybe not boundaries, but some guidance in terms of what makes a good comment. So it's okay to offer praise, right? One of the things that I notice is students will say things like, "Ooh, I really like that," or "That's a great idea," okay? But then that's it, and there's not a lot of substance in that. So I tell students, that's fine. You can certainly say you like something, that something's a good idea, but then tell the author specifically what you like, okay? The other thing I tell them is to leave a question or thought behind that pushes the author to think more about the post. If you don't understand something that the author wrote, tell them, right? Ask a question. Ask them to say more about something, right? If you're wondering something, I mean, the author may not know the answer, but just leave a question for them. Make a suggestion, right? Or give an idea. The author might be sharing a concern. The author might have some questions or confusions that he or she would like help with. So if that's the case and you have something to add, then, you know, add it. Okay, and then the other thing is to pay attention to previous comments. All right, so what's going to happen is, you know, somebody's going to go in and write a comment, and somebody else is going to write a comment, etc., etc. And if the thread gets really long, of course, students aren't necessarily going to read every comment, but most threads are going to be pretty simple and easy to read and digest. So just kind of look through. I tell students what other people have been saying. At the very least, skim it, and when relevant, make connections to what other commenters have said, because what's going on in the comment section is you're having a discussion with the author, but you're also having a discussion with other commenters, right? All of these people are a part of the larger conversation. Okay, so what should students do with comments, right? They're the author. They've got 10 comments on their post. What do they do about them? Well, I tell my students, acknowledge them, okay? And this is exactly what I say. In general, you want to acknowledge 90% or more of the comments that are left for you. Acknowledging comments is not required for this class, okay? So I don't, while I count off how many posts students have and I check to make sure that they have how many comments they are leaving within each week, I don't go back and see if they are acknowledging the comments that people left on their posts. I cannot do that. That's where it gets to be too much for me. But I do tell them acknowledging comments is not required for this class, but in blogging, it is considered good manners to do so, right? So we're teaching them about blogging. We're teaching them about what it means to be a blogger and what it means to reside within a larger blogging community. It is also considered good form to read that person's blog and leave a comment when it is appropriate. Not all comments, of course, that are left for students are going to be substantive, and I tell them you do not need to respond to comments that do little more than say great post, or you could acknowledge them in one sweeping response such as thanks for the support, I'm really glad you enjoyed this. The people who deserve a response are the ones who put thought and effort into their comment regardless of the length of the comment, right? Comments, and you might need to remind students of this, are going to be shorter than blog posts, right? We're talking about a few sentences typically, right? It's going to be helpful to, as you are working on having your students write posts and writing comments, to pull some out and talk about them and look at them, to look at posts and comments left on the blogosphere in general that that your class didn't write, and to talk about what makes these posts good, what makes comments good, what makes them not so good, right? So just sort of just like you would when you learn how to write any text, okay? All right, so what's up next? So now we have to move on to talking about, for you as a teacher, how do you keep up with all this? And I promise you it's not as hard as you might think. I understand it might sound overwhelming, but I promise you it's not. So we're going to be looking at how do you keep up with blog posts, how do you keep up with comments, right? If these are things that you want to keep track of, how do you keep track of them? And then how do you evaluate blogs? So that will be coming up next.